lifestyle. Sustainability isn't just about farming and efficient light bulbs. It starts within yourself. What can I do that will reduce my carbon footprint?
Green City Force.
Green City Force grew out of many years that I had spent working around the big idea of universal civic service for young people. So I spent about 10 years developing that idea through an organization called Unicité in France. So I had already worked on, this idea for some time when I came back to the United States and had the chance to connect to a very exciting movement around the emerging green economy. The idea was that there would be a component that could be this civic service component that could be intentionally designed as part of career paths into the green economy, with a focus on young Black and Brown people who are living in particular in cities and on the front lines of so many of the environmental justice issues. It's an ambitious endeavor that we've been trying to do, which is to connect the dots between the massive youth unemployment that exists in public housing in New York City pre-pandemic, by the measure of the Housing Authority themselves, who house 500,000 people in New York City. It's a very, very large system. By their own measure, 70% of young people 18 to 25 were unemployed. At the core of Green City Force's model is building large-scale raised bed urban farms in the middle of housing developments that are conceived as eco-resiliency hubs. That's connected to, for example, composting, because the food that is grown at the farms is distributed to local residents in exchange for them bringing compost scraps. This has had to be sort of suspended a little bit during the pandemic, but this whole system, when it was up and running prior to the pandemic, actually, it's an interesting example, because the system of building off of the farm to have a compost exchange meant that in those neighborhoods, composting has actually risen to the levels of more affluent communities. In the case of Green City Force, we now have 700 graduates. So in fact, the thousands are around the country, in this broader network of which we're a part, which is called the Core Network. We have sister organizations in just about every city. It's been a gradual effort to, first of all, recruit the young people, give them this chance, but also ensure that they have the means to develop a genuine interest in these fields. And then going into these different jobs, has also been a learning process. At times, the graduates have been the first people of color who are going into some of these businesses. For me, what is happening now is I'm at the very beginning of a research project at MIT and an affiliation with MIT's Design X, which is also about innovation and entrepreneurship for impact. And we are looking at how can this idea of climate cores, inspired by our work at Green City Force, but really sort of expanding out, from a specific program model to a broader idea of it's a question, what kind of city can a citywide climate core really inspire? What would be possible, and how can we blueprint some of these ideas and work in collaboration with people? We're starting in with a focus on Boston, but we hope to be able to do this with people in other places around the world. If the city of Lisbon decides that someday they want to create a climate core, or if people in organizations that align with this idea, feel there's momentum and develop into a network, I would be so delighted to come back and be part of that collaboration however I can. And I'm sure that I have a lot to learn in the process of doing that myself. So I would love to come back if it turns out that in the future there's momentum towards this sort of idea that we're working on. It's the beginning of something new, and I'm excited to be here at this time.